Hello everybody, my name is Tiffany, I'm the Tipsy Artist. Cheers! We are going live today on Facebook to paint this beautiful snowman. This is for a fundraiser for Morgan's Purpose, and you can find all the information on our page. It's not too late to donate. We're trying to raise funds for their beautiful fundraiser today. And so if you want more information, you can always email me at info@tipsyartist.com or message me on Facebook, or you can just comment in the comments and I can get back with you. But what we've done so far is we've sent out all these kits to people who wanted to participate. So they have all the supplies, and then we're just going to be teaching from the kit. So it's very exciting. Yay! All right, so it's going to be a little bit of a longer class because I'm definitely going to be going over all the specific details of every single thing that we do, which is really helpful because we're doing some buffalo check today, and I know sometimes buffalo check can be a little bit intimidating for people, so we're going to take that step by step. So first things first, let's talk about all the supplies that we have. And in your kit we have an apron. This is actually an apron, believe it or not. So this unfolds and makes a cute little apron if you want to use it like that. If you don't, it also makes kind of a great tablecloth too. So either way, that's your fun little apron. And then of course you've got your napkins nearby. And then we have our little brush set. We have our mama brush. And then we have our little buddy brush. And then we have our little bit brush. And then we've got your template kit. So it's got all this line art and some optional words that you can use. So that will basically be in your box. It kind of looks like this in the box. So that gives you an example of that. And then with that too is a permanent marker and then a color pencil. We'll be talking about how to use those too. And then there's also some washi tape. And yours might be a different color than this, but they're all really fun, different colors. So we'll be using this too. All right, so that is all the supplies and materials that we have. I want to make sure we have that all out. That comes in your, paint. I had it right here so I wouldn't forget. I almost forgot it. All right, so we have our paint. This is our paint kit that goes with it. And then, of course, your canvas. I forgot the most basic things. Your paint and your canvas. So here it all is. And then let's talk about how to position and get our transfer paper ready and our line art ready. So I have another little mock-up here. This is a little bit larger in scale just to give you a better visual of it. So basically what you will find in your kit is you will find some transfer paper, and the transfer paper basically looks like this. And so the first thing that I like to do is I like to go ahead and just center the line art on the transfer paper, and then I just use that washi tape to do that. So basically, just so you know, the washi tape is very much like painter's tape, so it has a little bit of sticky to help it stay secure, but it also releases easily as well. So that's the consistency of it. If you do want something stronger and you have it in the house, you can always switch to Scotch tape. Some people prefer that, but we always include this with our kits. So you can use this. So I basically have this centered. So I center the line art on the transfer paper. And then this is really important. So you want to make sure that the dull side of the transfer paper is facing up, and that the shiny, darker side is facing the canvas. All right, so again, dull gray side facing up, and then shiny, darker side faces your canvas. Okay, and so that's all taped and then secured. Another really helpful tip is, because the tape is a little bit, doesn't secure super great to the canvas itself, it does a super good job of securing to the wooden frame here on the back. So you want to make sure that you wrap that, get a big long strip and wrap that washi tape around to the wood and make sure it sticks to the wood to keep it steady. Also, I highly recommend just placing this on a flat surface. Whoa, almost, y'all with me? I didn't mean to tap you. Okay, so make sure and place it on a flat surface to do your line work. It just really helps keep it a lot more steady throughout that process there. All right, so next up what we'll be doing is the tracing part. So I'm going to give you a visual on that, and then also we want to make sure that we get this actually lined up properly. This is an 8x10 canvas that we're using today. Super cute. The whole image covers the entire surface area. There's a little tiny section that falls off the edge here, but for the most part, everything else fits onto the canvas. So you do have to position it a little bit in just the right spot so that you get as much of the image as possible on the canvas. So I'm going to show you how I have done mine. So I have a little bit of an overlap. You can see how I've wrapped the paper. The paper wraps until the edge of the paper is just flush with the edge of the canvas there. You can see that. And then you can see there's a little bit of an overlap here at the bottom, but you can see how the bottom of the snowman is just right there at the edge of the canvas. So it really fits from, like, you know, the bottom of the snowman to the top here. So it's really a great perfect fit for the 8x10 canvas. And then for any of you who are doing this later and maybe possibly you're not using the kit, it also does work on 11x14 just fine as well. So 8x10 or 11x14, both are great sizes. The size we're doing today is an 8x10. All right, so I have it taped. One other helpful hint is that I do leave the bottom unsecured. So that is helpful to me because that way whenever I'm done, I can check my work and I can come back here and I can see what my work looks like to see if I've missed anything. Keep this very secure, you know, get a good handle on this. Don't let this get off track. And then lift off, see if you need anything, and then that way you're still on track with your line work still matching up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and place this back down. Now we're going to talk about how to do all of the line work. Now I did go ahead and do a little bit of a work ahead, not all of it, but some of it. And I got out my color pencil. We always give you a color pencil with your kit, and the reason why is so that it is contrasting over the top. So I used red initially, but who knows what color you have. I have all different colors, and it's just usually kind of random. So what we do is we go ahead and we just hard line around every place that you see a dark line. That's where you're going to be placing a line. So you want to apply pretty firm pressure. And again, my surface area is at an angle so that you can see it as I'm teaching, but strongly recommend flat surface at this point. So it's actually much better if you're just working at your dining room table, kitchen table, much sturdier, much easier to work on. So place it flat because if you have it on an easel and you're trying to apply firm pressure, a lot of times those easels can shift and then that can kind of make the lines get off track. So again, just lay it flat and then just concentrate on doing a hard line edge on every single place where you see a black line. So when you do that, it's basically just going to transfer every single thing here. It doesn't have to be super hard, you know, just normal pressure as though you're writing, and just even see it's not that I just did that, and that just makes a transfer. So it's not like you have to really bear down or anything, just normal pressure. So I went ahead and I did every single line that I saw. And then the moment of truth. So you have to check your work, and then you come back here and you lift, and then there is our line work. So it's magic. It's like pure magic. It just transfers everything to the canvas. It's really awesome. And then what I did leave to go ahead and do with y'all, I did go ahead and work ahead, just so you wouldn't just have to sit here and watch me for a really, really long time. But also, I'm going to do the line work with you today with the permanent marker. So this is going to be our next step. Now, this is optional. However, highly, highly recommended, especially on buffalo check. Really helps make the process a lot easier, because on buffalo check we have a hard black line around everything. Now where it may become a little bit optional is where you may not necessarily need a black line. The interior space here of the candy cane, no hard black lines there. Gosh, there's not really one on the carrot nose, but everywhere else there is a hard black line. So I say as a beginner, if you're just wanting a smooth answer, easiest answer, I would say go ahead and black line everything. To me, it's much easier on you. And so that's what we're going to start to do. And then I'm also going to teach you how to strategically map out the buffalo check. So that can sometimes be a little bit complicated for people. I think they get a little bit intimidated by it. So we'll go over that and give you some patterns that your brain can kind of relax with and go, oh, okay, I trust the process and I can just take it. It's almost like taking baby steps with your buffalo check. So it makes it a lot easier. And right now I'm starting with my little retro design here on my ornament. And then we will just continue on. And then also please note today too that if you have any questions as we go, in this particular format I have some challenges seeing a lot of the activity in terms of everything that's written, but I always come back right after the class and I answer any questions that you have. So I'll put lots of throw notes or pictures or whatever is necessary in the notes to help you out. So it could even be links to other tutorials to help better express a different topic, but I always make sure and do that for everybody. All right, so here we go. Right now we're just going to concentrate on all of the outlines first, and then I'll save that fun buffalo check for the very end. Some of us call this buffalo plaid. That's another name that I hear a lot. Kind of hear it both buffalo check, buffalo plaid. And I will tell you that there's also what's called a courtly check. Same exact pattern, a little bit easier quite honestly, and if you want to do that you certainly can. And that is really just 2 colors. So we're going to be doing 3 colors today. But if you want to do the courtly check, it's kind of a mix of a super light, the lightest of creams, almost an off-white, and then a black, and that's it. Now you can also use a ruler for your buffalo check pattern if you don't feel really confident with your hand being completely steady. So of course, any flat edge can certainly help out with this. I'm going to take off my bracelet, getting a little resistance there. I don't want that. So I'm going to have to turn a little bit to make sure I can see, because for the most part, when I am doing these tutorials, I work a lot just on the side, but you can just imagine why I may have to turn a little bit and adjust my angle so that I can definitely see what I'm doing here. Now on the little eyes here, there are some flash points. That becomes really delicate. For this first step, I'm just going to go ahead and blacken those in. And then I'll give you a technique at the very end to do tiny little white flash points on those eyes. So I don't worry too much about being too precise with that super tiny little pin dot. That's another painted technique that we can place in there later. And then we'll just continue all the way around. And we have his little twig arm here. And those can certainly be very rough and misshapen because twigs are, honestly, the more photorealistic they are, the more rough and kind of nubby and knotty that they are, so to speak. Here's our candy cane. So little diagonal lines happening here. And then we just did a little ribbon over the top too. There's our little twig. Now here's the body of the snowman. And then we're almost done. And now we just have this line work that we can do. I'm going to give you a visual on this just in case you want to try. You can do the straight edge just like that too if you would like. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and follow my line here. I don't think it has to be too perfect. It is on fabric. And so the lines can be a little bit, you know, if they're a little bit wavy, then just kind of roll with it. You can just tell people that's where the fabric is, you know. Hey, works. All right, and then I have vertical lines coming down, so let's go ahead and place those in. And everybody who does this with me always agrees that getting all this done in the beginning with the permanent marker makes this process so much easier. There's a lot of detail here. And then the other thing too is I just go ahead and stick with a strong visual of just keeping the pattern consistent over the front of the design, if you will. I don't really deal with the complexity of the realism of a fold with the scarf and how that might actually disrupt the buffalo plaid. I just make sure that my buffalo plaid stays consistent. So I just keep that part of it really simple. And to me, the visual on that is very beautiful, and it just works. And it makes it a whole lot easier on you. All right, so now our next step is to go ahead and start to position in the color. And honestly, I think it's pretty nice to have a pencil nearby. And I'll give you an alternative if you don't have a pencil. But what I do start with is, I do start with the black squares first. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with black, and then basically I'm just gonna start with one. Just start somewhere. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do a black square, and I'm just going to fill it in completely. And then from here, what I know is that I have gray surrounding it on top and on the side and on this side and on this side. So it's all 4 sides. So you start to recognize that pattern that will repeat, and that's what makes this process easy. So you start with just one black, and then you'll just know that on all 4 sides, it's going to be gray. So I like to go ahead and work in with a pencil, just this. Now, if you do not have a pencil with you and you're trying to get a nice reference of where this is going to be gray here, then you can always, sometimes what I do to give the look of the buffalo, you can do one of 2 things. You can just make like a little G for gray, with like the colored pencil that we gave you, really faintly, very light, because gray will cover over that. Just make sure it's very light. That's one way to do it. Or if you like the look of it, another way that they do it, I notice on patterns, you can still use your marker here, and I'm going to give you a little visual. So wherever there's a black square, you can do little diagonal lines wherever it's gray. So I'm going to show you that real quick. And some people actually just love the look of this. I see this a lot in clip art. So it just looks like this. And then that will actually stay behind the scenes. So, but if that scares you and you don't think you're going to like that, Some of you, I think, have seen this. You can even do it softer with like a ballpoint pen too, like a black pen. That'll be a lot more subtle, but that's another way to do it. Okay, so, but to me, I prefer just the light gray. And again, if you don't have that, I know you have a colored pencil, and so you can certainly just take it and do a little tiny G for gray in all 4 quadrants. And then we're going to start our pattern over again with the black. And then this will continue all the way through. And then the part that drops out is the white. And so that just makes it really easy, because I know sometimes when you start to envision 3 different colors in this check pattern, if you don't recognize the pattern at first, then it seems kind of scary. All right, then we're going to go back in with our black here. And then let's go back with our pencil. And so we'll do the top and the side. And then that bottom part. And I know that's a little bit long, but we're not going to worry too much about that. It's not that significant in terms of the visual read on this. And then we'll go into another black here. And then of course we know that the pattern is gray here, and then gray here. All right, perfect. All right, now, so we skip a row because we want this to be, we want that white to stay in the pattern and alternate, because we have black and gray alternating, and then we have white and gray alternating. And then so our continuation of this will just come down to here. So then I'm going to do my next black here. So what you start to notice is the same pattern that continues in repetition horizontally continues vertically. So as we continue down, then we do our gray here, and then on the side, and then on this side. And while we're here, I don't want to forget this little sliver of black, or else I might forget that later if I don't do it now. And then of course this section will be black in here. And then we're out of room, it just runs out of space there. This will be another black here. And then let's remember our pattern. Gray on all 4 sides. And then we remember our pattern here, so black will be here. And then here. I'm gonna make sure and get that little gray spot right there. And again, black, gray, black, gray, black, gray, black. So here we go. Staying true to our pattern. And then adding more gray here. And then on the side, don't forget all those little sides. All 4 sides. And then our last black would be here. All right, and then as we go across here, remember this section is alternating gray and white. So of course we have a little bit of gray here. So then it goes gray, white, gray, white, gray. And then here we have to think about our horizontal pattern, so it goes back to black, gray, black. And we skip a row, and we go gray, white, gray, so we have our gray here. And if for some reason you get tripped up mentally, sometimes You know, it happens that people are, you know, they do call us the tipsy artist. You're drinking wine, for example, and you start to get lost in the process. Do remember the pattern of your black being surrounded by all 4 quadrants of gray, and that usually helps get you back on track if you get a little turned around. And then we have another black here. And then of course we have 2 blacks, and we know that gray comes in between those 2 blacks. We got to fill that in. Okay, oops, sometimes we miss one, so here's another gray. Gotta make sure and get all these. Some gray in here too. You can just already start to see how helpful it is to get all this mapped out, especially with something that's a little bit, I mean, obviously the permanent marker is not that forgiving, but it's certainly very easy to work with at this stage. All right, and then let's go ahead and just start on the hat here. So we've got our black. Let's just pick one. And also, let me just say with this plaid, it's really fun, and you can leave it as just like this. So this is set up beautifully to where it can just be left with what I would call more of a classic buffalo check that keeps the white intact. You can certainly just leave it like that. It's also, to be honest, quite a bit easier sometimes. You know, it's one less color to work with. But it's super easy to also fill in with the contrasting reds and crimsons, which is what we were working with today. And so both of those work really well. So you're set up now to where you can go in either direction now. All right, so I've got my black square up here. So now I want to go ahead and work in some gray on all 4 quadrants, all 4 sides of that hat here, or black square rather, in the hat. Okay. And I want to make sure I'm going to make this line a little bit thicker. All right. All right, so now let's skip. And let's do black here. And then fill in gray. We want gray surrounding the black, all 4 sides again. Or in this case, we run into the face, so we won't worry about that bottom one. All right, good job. I can feel it. Y'all are doing a great job out there. All right, and then black again. And then we'll go gray up here. We're almost getting done with all this. Okay, then we skip. So we've got our black and gray pattern alternating here. And then this one will alternate with either, you know, in this case, starting off just white. So then we want to go ahead and go gray here. This will stay white, that will stay white. All right, and then here, we want to go ahead and, sometimes it gets a little bit tricky on this because you want to make sure. So you've got, because we don't have a black that's extending, so this was, theoretically, we want to make sure that we have our little gray section in here, and then it alternates with our, so it goes gray, and then it goes white, and then we need to go back to the gray again, and then it'll go black here. Okay, so that got a little bit tricky in there, like ooh, because of all the different elements happening, but that'll actually just stay. And then once we put in our Christmas plaid, that will, some of this will kind of become, it'll disappear a little bit into the design work here. All right, so now we've got, that's a big, yes, hello. Everyone from Oklahoma on here, LOL, yes. Big fundraiser here in Oklahoma. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so I think at this point we have all of our tracing done. I think we are now ready to paint. So this is very exciting. So again, you want to make sure that you have all of your elements nearby. So of course you've got your paper towels and your brushes, and make sure you get a little bit of water nearby to wash your brushes. And you should have some mixing plates in there, a couple of mixing plates. And then we're gonna get our paint ready. This is very exciting, brand new box of paint. So we're gonna open it up. And here we go. I'm gonna give you a nice little visual on this. Plastic wrap, so we gotta remove this here. I swear it's easy. Hold on. Here it goes. All right. Our beautiful, yes, Royal and Langnickel or Royal Brush paints. They're kind of called both things, so either way. Actually, I've got a little trash thing. There we go. Okay. So, brand new beautiful paint. And then as you start to get your paint out, please note that I'm gonna try this white here first. So every paint tube looks like this to begin with, and then let me show you something. So they all have a little foil seal on them, so you will need to take that off before you can get that paint out of there. So I just, you know, use like my fingernail here and just kind of lift off. See how there's a little bit of a lift there? And then we'll peel that off. This is funny. It never really takes me that long to get these off. And this one I can't get off. So we'll just peel this off. And I swear I've never had a problem getting one off, and now I am. Oh my gosh, really? Okay, here it goes. So they did a really good job securing this one. Way to go, Roll Brush. You're awesome. Okay, so, phew, got it off. All right, and that will help your paint flow out of the tube. All right, so what we're going to start with, we're going to keep all of our darkest colors towards the very end. We're going to start with our lights. So that means we're going to start with our snowman first. So we have our titanium white that we will start with. And we're going to start by making a pretty nice big healthy dollop on our plate to begin with. So let's do a nice quarter size heaping dollop of our white. Let me bring that in a little bit closer. And then we want just a teeny tiny amount of the black. All right, so this is our Mars black. And we are going to have to remove that foil seal there. See, that one just lifted right off. That's normally how they go. And then I just need a little pea size here to start with, not much. All right, and I am going to be using my Mama brush to start with. This is the 1/2 inch golden Taklon flat brush that you have in your kit here. And I'm gonna just barely touch into the black, super, super tiny amount. And then I'm gonna push that into the white. And you can see that went super dark so fast, so very overpowering. And I just barely touched into that black. So we're gonna mix all that together. And that's actually, I got too big of a touch, quite honestly. And that may happen to you, because if it happens to me, well, it can happen to anybody. So I'm going to grab a little bit more white off to the side now. I'm gonna do one more dollop of white. Let's get that going off to the side. Got my light gray here, my white here, and then I'm going to start working this into that cute little snowman tummy. All right, so I'm gonna start with a little bit of that lighter, softer gray, and we're just gonna push that into the body of the snowman. And I'm just holding the brush really just like you'd hold a pencil. This is a really simple move. Helps you do your cut-in work into this shape. And then when you start to kind of feather the brush strokes out in the center of the body, then you want to turn that handle over to the side. Now this is where I have that little extra amount of white. I definitely want to lay some pure white paint right over the top. So I'm going to go ahead and just hold that brush right over to the side here. Alright, and then that will give me a really nice layer right there. And then I'll come into a little bit more of that pure white and then just kind of barely touch into that lighter gray that we mixed. And then I'll work this into the rest of the body here. Now this is getting to be really tight in here around this little scarf, and we don't want to disrupt that. So I'm going to take my little bit brush and I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick little twist here into that light gray that we mixed up. So I'm twirling the head of the brush into the paint, and that gives me a nice fine point. And then I can go ahead and just work this into that little scarf there. Just right around it, just that little cut in right around that scarf. So we definitely needed that smaller size for that. And then I'll go ahead and rinse this off in the water, spin it round and round and round, and then I'll just go ahead and wipe it off here with my little nearby rag or a paper towel. And then let's switch back to the flat side of the brush to go ahead and fill into the body here of the snowman. And then we'll continue working all the way up through here. I'm going to do a light wash over those little circles because I know that that will bleed through, and I don't have to worry about cutting in around those. So that's nice. That's what that permanent marker is very helpful for. And then kind of lightly feather that out. All right, now on to the face. So again, we're still using our light gray. And see, I can just wash it all over the top here. And I know that my permanent marker will bleed right through. So you do want to apply pretty firm pressure. You're just trying to get a nice wash of paint over the surface area. And you don't want the complication of doing the cut-in work because you want to eliminate brush strokes. So just kind of feather that all in over the top. And see how all those facial features are just bleeding right through, which is great because we're going to fill those back in with color. It's still there for us as a guide. It's all good. So let me just bring this a little bit closer so you can still see it, definitely. And then we still have a little bit more of our soft white to do. I'm just going to feather out any additional brush strokes I see here. Get a nice light coat. And let's go ahead and do a little spin into this little ball up here. So with this, I just go ahead and kind of push and twist the brush around, and that fans those bristles out in a circular motion. And then we have our little candy cane. Now, this is a little bit big for that candy cane shape, so I'm going to go ahead and take my little mama brush. I'm going to rinse her off here, give her a bath. All right, so spin round and round and round. And then we'll do a little wipe down with our rag or a paper towel. She's all clean. Next up, we need our little buddy. So here is little buddy. This is a 1/4 inch flat golden Taklon brush. And then we're working into the candy cane back here. So we basically just want our white. We just want it to be a little bit painterly. So grab a little bit of white here and just go ahead and paint into the candy cane shape. And don't worry about trying to cut into all those lines. We're just getting that base coat first. So just the white first, and I'm going to ignore that little ribbon and just get this first coat of white into the candy cane shape. All right, so let's see. I want to make sure and check my work. I think I've got everything I need. Yes. Okay. So all right, so next up, let's do some green. Okay, so in your paint kits, we have some beautiful cadmium green, and then we also have some bright yellow green. And I'm gonna go ahead and do, there's not that much green on here, so I'm just gonna do a small little dollop. That's plenty, about a dime size or nickel size heaping dollop of the green. And let's do the same thing with our bright yellow green. And then we will take our little buddy brush. Again, this is the 1/4 inch flat Taklon brush. We're gonna mix these two together. And that brightens it up, makes it much easier to work with. Here is, even if you think, no, I love the cadmium green just as its own, just on its own, this is what color I want, if that's what you're thinking. The problem with using it in a pure state is that it sometimes will remain very translucent and difficult to work with. So add just a little touch of something that lightens up the pigment just a little bit. So in this case, in order to keep it more of a true green, that's why I added the bright yellow green. You could also add just a super tiny amount of white if you wanted to. But just definitely it's important to mix it with a little bit of something. Now, if you do want to go darker, I totally get that. Like if you're wanting to do something that's more a little bit like a pine, let me give you an option there too. So we have this other beautiful green that is called Viridian. I love this color, it's really nice. So this will give you more of a pine look. It's not what I have used in the model, but it's certainly something to explore with if you love the look of it. So you can add a tiny touch of Viridian. Let's mix that together. And you can see how it's very, see how it's a lot darker? So that is with your Viridian. So, but I've definitely mixed two colors together and it just helps it cover better on the canvas. So that's up to you. I'll let you kind of just see what you like and you can kind of play with either one of those and go either direction there. All right, now our holly leaves are up here and then we have a cute little green ribbon here. And so I'm gonna start, we've got our little buddy loaded up, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with this really pretty green that we mixed up initially that's a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna use more of my line edge. I'm gonna show you something too. So I've got, this brush is loaded up with color, but it's still very thin on the edge. So you do that by, of course, you can press into the paint, but that firm pressure also maintains that thin line edge. So that helps, I think, whenever you're getting right next to the edge and having to do a little bit of that cut-in work. So initially I have to hold the brush, you know, in a traditional sense that you're used to, a little bit more like a pencil. And then when I finish up, I have to just kind of lightly turn the handle, and this is when it feels kind of awkward. So then you kind of hold that brush more over to the side, and that gives you a lot more coverage over the surface. So it definitely feels a little bit odd to hold it like this, but that awkward touch is what gives you more of a gentle hand, and it allows a lot more paint to just lightly rest on the surface area. And there's my first little holly leaf there. Now let's do our second one. I just very kind of patiently work into all these little areas. now I need to kind of feather this out in the center. So light little strokes. Try to lightly minimize any brush strokes you might be seeing. So just very light little touches right over the top there. All right, now we still have this cute little ribbon over here, and little buddy is too big. So let's rinse him off, and then we'll dry little buddy off. And then I'm going to shift over to little bit. So here's little bit, and I'm going to twist little bit into the paint, nice fine point, and then we'll start to work into this little ribbon here. So this takes a little bit more patience. This is a really small brush, so it can't hold that much paint. So it definitely requires a lot more of a reload and going right back into the paint. So at first I'm just holding it more like a pencil, just trying to get into every single little tight corner there. And then I want to work on feathering it out a little bit. So then get a little bit more paint resting on the flat side of the brush, and then let's hold that brush more over to the side and just kind of lightly pull that out and get really good coverage right over the top. So the idea is to get your brush parallel to the canvas as much as possible. And then that will give your color, it will look a lot more opaque at this point when you really just kind of barely rest it on the side. Yay. Okay. All right, so that is our beautiful green. Very exciting. Next is orange. So we have a cute little orange carrot nose. And since we have so many pretty colors to mix with, we'll kind of, you know, mix this up a little bit. So we have our beautiful cadmium orange. We'll do a little bit of that. There's not much to use here, so just a little tiny amount is all that's needed. Like a little pea-size amount. Now you can leave it just like that, pure orange, or for fun, let's do some cadmium yellow. So this just creates, I think, some nice depth to the color to have a little bit of a mix happening here. So, and this is a really fun, warm, vibrant yellow that's really close to the orange, very similar. And always make sure to put the caps back on your acrylic paint. These are small bottles, and so they can certainly dry up pretty quickly. So you always want to make sure and recap those. All right, this is a small area, so I'm going to take my little bit brush, and we're going to just softly mix these two together. Two little pea-sized amounts of color. This is orange and cadmium yellow. So that certainly warms it up a little bit, makes it a little bit more peachy, but certainly the color of a carrot. And also it will help it color better on the canvas too. Anytime you can add a little bit of a lighter pigment to it, certainly easier to paint with. So then I'm going to go ahead and make this little line, delicate line work into that carrot shape. To me it's just easier just to hold it just like you'd hold a pencil. Use just the very tip of the brush. And then work that in. And then also just remember to kind of lay the brush on the side. And that'll give you that nice coverage over the top like we talked about. Rinse out and then dry off. Lo's out there. Hi, Lo. You probably said hi and I didn't see you. Hello. All right, let's see. We are getting to the reds. Oh, I missed some gold. hold up. Top of the ornament. All right, so let's go back to our cadmium yellow. Cadmium yellow, okay? And then let's actually grab a little bit of our primary yellow. So primary yellow, I think this one still has the foil on it. See, I'll lift that off so we can get that paint out of there. It's all good. There we go. And now this is a small little area. I'm going to be using my little buddy brush. Little 1/4 inch flat. There it is. Nice even mix of the cadmium yellow and the primary yellow. And then I'm just going to sweep that into this top little area right in here. All right, very pretty. All right, so next it feels like we're getting really close to just doing all of our red next. So, red, red, red. Here we go. So we have this beautiful cadmium red. And I can actually read a message. Thank you for these classes. I'm learning a lot better how to make my paintings better. Hopefully in 2021 we will be able to, and then it goes dot, dot, dot. I'll read the rest later. Thank you so much. We have hope in 2021 as well. Lots of hope. All right, so we have our cadmium red. This is a very warm red. So I'm gonna do a nice, we're gonna be using a lot of this. So I'm gonna have a nice big dollop of that. And you know what? I like to kind of cool off this red a little bit. You have the option of leaving it in a warm state if you want, just as is, no mixing. But I am going to add some beautiful primary magenta. So what this does, this will cool off that red. It will still look red, but it will look more like a cool red instead of a warm red. All right, so I'm peeling off the little top here. Another big amount, because it's equal parts on this, equal parts. All right, and then we want to mix this together. I'm gonna go ahead and mix with my mama brush here. So let's just mix those two. And you're gonna see right away how it's really still going to look red, but like a different red, like a cool red like we talked about. All right, how pretty, very pretty. Okay, so while I still have this bigger brush, I'm gonna go ahead and place this into the ornament shape here. And just fill that in. And I realize there's a pattern there, but we're gonna do that later, because guess what? It bleeds through. You still see it, and so we'll just touch that later. And now let's feather it out. So red has a tendency to be very translucent. So it's really key to hold that brush over to the side, light feathering. And there we go. All right, so there's our beautiful red there. And then we have that same red that we can place here at the top of the hat. I think I'm gonna have to go to a smaller brush pretty quickly. And yes, I am, because it's getting really tight really fast. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my mama and rinse her out. Dry her off, make sure she's all clean until later. Then let's go ahead. We have a lot of really tiny areas, so I'm gonna start with little bit. So here's little bit brush. This is the smallest brush you've got, that little liner. Just do a little spin into that red that we mixed up. And then we want to work around that holly. So you just hold the brush like a pencil and work around those little shapes. And then when you work out into the larger area, then of course you can kind of feather it back out. I will come back in with my little buddy momentarily and kind of feather it out even more to kind of smooth it out a little bit, because the little bit brush is just so small, and so you're going to see lots of tiny little lines running through there. And the only way to really effectively smooth that out is to use a bigger brush. So, but we're going to get into these small areas here first. All right, so we have a great start, and I'm going to quickly just come in with a little bit of more red and little buddy and just kind of lightly place this over the top. Really light hand. I also want to make sure I get a nice dollop of paint on one flat side, and that will help eliminate those brush strokes too. Kind of smooth and feather that out. Can't get into every little place, but as best as you can, kind of come as close as you can. All right, and then back to little bit brush, and we're going to circle into those little berries in there. And then we're also going to do our little candy cane here. So we've got a little bit of red in the top. And these are small areas, so you still have to stick with the smallest brush to do all this detail work. And I think we've got one more little stripe in there, one more in here. Beautiful. Okay, so, oh, you know what? I missed a little red right here. Let's get it. That's better. All right, I think we're good. All right, so now we have to do the little twig hand. So we're gonna learn how to do a very light brown. My mommy's on here. My mom is Mary Preston, everybody. She's the best mommy in the whole world. Love you, Mom. All right, so let's do some brown. All right, so brown is fun. This is a mix of cadmium red, and black. We're gonna start small with the black because we want this to be a light brown. So do I have black anywhere? Oh, I do. Okay, I have a little bit of black over here. All right, so I just kind of barely touched into a little bit of black, and I'm gonna mix this with my cadmium red. And so you can see that's pretty dark. I mean, it's definitely brown. I'll show you close, but it's a dark brown. Oh, you know what? Oops, that's crimson. I can make this, I forgot. Hey, you know what I say? There are no mistakes, only possibilities. You just learn how to make crimson. Brown is, pardon me, brown is orange and black. Okay, I will get this together. It has been one of those days. I wish I could blame it on alcohol, but no. It's just, I'm just losing my mind naturally. Isn't that wonderful? Okay, so here's some more orange. And let's try this again. I'm gonna touch into that black one more time. Little tiny touch of black. Now let's mix that into the orange. Now you're gonna see the brown. See, that's brown. You were like, Tipsy, that other one was not brown. No, but this is. Ta-da! All right, so beautiful brown. Now, I want to lighten it up even just a little bit more. So I'm gonna add a little tiny touch of white. Maybe even some of that cadmium yellow. Because see, we have all this black that's going to be coming in. So I definitely want some contrast. So a little bit more cadmium yellow. Let's warm that up now. Spit it out. All right, so here is our little twig hand. So I don't want it to be dark brown because I would be concerned about not having the contrast with that black background that will come in later. So we need to plan for that a little bit. So make sure that this is a really nice light brown. And then we're also going to have a little bit of some snowfall on this as well, but that comes in at the very end. We'll kind of tap that out. It's a nice little look of snowfall on the twig. All right, that's really nice looking. Okay. So let's see, man, we're getting really close to just all the red in our lovely snowman here. All right, so remember what we talked about? There's two different ways to paint this. So you can actually paint it to where you can put just a light gray over the top of the gray, and you can make this just a buffalo check that is the traditional gray and white and black. But because this is our model today, we're gonna stick with this Christmas plaid today. So we're gonna be placing in a crimson and then also just a pure red. All right, so we got a little early start on our crimson, which is the red and the black. Okay, and just a super tiny amount of black mixes with the red, and that gives you your crimson. All right, so we're gonna, but I'm also gonna mix in a little bit of that, you know, that mix we had earlier with the primary magenta and the cadmium red, because this is crimson, but it's very warm. So I'm gonna add in a little bit of that primary magenta with it. And so that will cool it off. That'll give us a cooler crimson. So it just cools it down a little bit. All right, so for this color, we're gonna place this every single place that we have the gray shadowing done. That's where we're gonna place our crimson. So, or remember, you can just do gray. You can do gray on top of gray and then white, and then you can actually just leave the black black. That's how simple it is. Or in this case, we're gonna go ahead and place crimson over every single place where there was the shading done that said gray. So fun options here. But this is that darker crimson color, so this is a little touch of the black. Black and your cadmium red. And you can also mix in a little bit of that primary magenta with that too. So it's equal parts primary magenta and red, and then just a tiny little touch of black that pushes it to that crimson. So you just push that color into each little section here, and this is my little buddy brush. This is that 1/4 inch gold Taklon brush. And even if you have a little bit of overflow onto your black, you can still go back and touch up your black at the very end. A couple different ways with actual paint, or you can wait till the very end when it's completely dry, and you can also just use your permanent marker to help line it all out. Whenever we're doing classes here in the studio, all my students honestly tell me that they love the permanent marker and they just always wait for it to dry and just use that at the very end. It's just so much more relaxing and easier to use. And to me, that is the primary goal. So I want y'all to learn how to relax and have a good time. And relax and have a good time, and relax and have a good time. I'm having to keep saying it because we need to do more of it. Oh my gosh, we need more of this. More relaxation. More good times. Yeah, we're going to fight back 2020. We are. We're going to fight back by having fun. All right, some more crimson. See, this goes so fast. This is why it was, it was a little bit, time consuming in the beginning to do all this work with our pencil and our permanent marker. But boy, now you just start to flow right through this stage. And then you go, yay, it's so easy now. So it makes it really enjoyable. All right, now I've got this darker crimson in here. And in here. Right in there too. So, and that's, I'm using Little Buddy, by the way, and he's a great tool because, again, he still has that really nice little thin line edge. So, great for sometimes spreading out on the side to get good coverage, or just kind of doing little taps and getting those little dashes into those smaller areas to where you can be a lot more precise. And wow, it's pretty exciting, but we're almost done. So, and this is honestly, this is another fun way that you can leave this plaid. You could leave it just like this too if you wanted. But we're gonna go ahead and push in with just that lighter, pure red. All right, so we're gonna go back to this lighter pure red here to begin with. So I did go ahead and wash out my Little Buddy brush, wiped it off. Now we're just going with pure red to begin with. And you think, gosh, am I gonna see the difference? And you will. It's, you already seen it, I'm sure. It's subtle, but you do see it. And just paint that into those little squares that are left. And so again, as a reminder, the mix on this cool red is equal parts cadmium red. Let me give you a little visual here. Equal parts cadmium red. And where is my primary magenta? Ah, here it is. And primary magenta. So we did that a little bit earlier, and I just had so much left on my plate that I'm just dipping right back into that. So, and I'm using my Little Buddy brush. And every single square that was initially white is now going to be this just pure red. It's a lot lighter than the crimson. And so it's pretty amazing how it all just kind of works out at the very end. And as I'm placing this on here, again, edge work to begin with, and then over to the flat side to fill in. And we just have a little bit more to do on the hat. And in this little area, right in through here. And I may have to get my little bit brush, we'll see. Actually, I'm just kind of working on a little tiny corner there. It's working. Awesome. Okay. I think I've got red there, red there, red there. I think we're all good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and rinse out little buddy here and then dry this off. And then we're really getting to the point where we can start to work in our black here. So we have black detail on the face. So let's see. And I've got loaded up, ready to go. But your black here is Mars Black. And we're gonna end up needing quite a bit of this in the background, but you can just start with, you know, like a dollop about like that. I've got some already set up. All right, one other thing I'll tell you, with really fine details and working with a lot of fluidity in the background, with your black, you can certainly add a little touch of water to it if you want, but the big word of caution is make sure and place your canvas on a flat surface. You can absolutely play with the water and just add just a tiny amount of it. It helps it flow into tiny areas or across the background of the canvas much easier, but you have to keep it flat or else it will create water runs and it will look like a mascara run that can run down your canvas if it's in a vertical state. So again, easy to use even for beginners, but just place it flat and you should be fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and twirl into the paint here, get a nice fine point. And then I'm gonna go ahead and go around these little eyes. Now, if you are hesitant about these little eyes, they scare you, if the paint's dry, which see mine's already set up and dry, you can certainly use your little permanent marker and go over the eyes and the smile. So a lot of people think that's a lot easier. Just gonna kind of very patiently and cautiously sort of just touch that into those little areas. And you can see how I kind of rest the weight of my hand on my pinky to help stabilize my hand there. And then of course I want to re-emphasize just little areas here and there where the other colors of paint that we worked with kind of washed over the black and we lost that hard outline that came around the edges. So we're going to come back in and accentuate some of those different patterns, and starting with like these little holly leaves to begin with. We're going to firm up those lines and that'll make this really kind of pop out in front. So definitely just holding the brush just like a pencil. And just working around these edges. And then I'm going to make these little berries pop out again too. So definitely bringing that little black line in and around those little berries, because I get a little lost with so much of this red behind them. So we're going to reinforce those with that black line. See, that really helps a lot. And then I don't have to worry too much about a lot of precision around the edge when I get out into the negative space. See how I'm just being really casual about that? And the reason why is because we're going to have a black background here in a little bit. So I can actually just be pretty casual with that, not too precise here. In fact, I actually just want as much detailed coverage as I can that flows out into that larger area to help prepare for all that black background that's coming. So you want to work that in as much as you can with the smaller brush. When I have to be a little bit more precise, though, or like little details around, like the little ribbon here, I need to really watch out there, make that little line. Be really careful. So we're going to do all this tiny work first. And then when the time is right, we'll definitely switch over to our mama and use mama into the larger areas. Because you don't want to paint all your background with this tiny little guy. That's too hard. And then we'll definitely talk about the right stroke to use for our background. Now you can be a little bit subtle with your candy cane. You don't have to do firm black lines around each red section, but you can if you want to. I might even recommend the permanent marker for that. Be a little bit more controlled and won't get too thick on you. So it's definitely getting a little tight in here, so I'm gonna work in with a little bit in this little area. Also, I don't want to forget these little circles. Probably little buttons or rocks. Snowmen are made with all kinds of interesting objects. Nothing too small in here to worry about. Still a little tight in here, so I'm going to work into this small area with this small little bit brush. And then I will be coming back in with a bigger brush and kind of feathering that out. Tell you what, this is pretty small in here too, so let's go ahead and use a little bit for that. All right, let's see. Oh, and this is a little bit tiny in here too, so let's go ahead and work in. Let's go ahead and work into this little area here too. And you can also paint the sides of your canvas too. I think at this point it might be easier to do that at the very end when everything is completely set up and dry. The black never changes. There's no mixing with the black, so you don't have to worry about the color changing on you, so that's nice. And you can always just work that in at the very end. But that does allow you to have the option of just using this canvas just as it is. without necessarily framing it. But if you are going to frame it, if you know you are, then you don't have to worry about painting all of the sides. But I would definitely make sure you've got enough black that completely covers and wraps around the edge a little bit. And we'll definitely get to that in a little bit more detail here in a moment. We're just getting into all those tiny little areas now. And then I want a nice hard line here. All right, wonderful. Okay, so we're gonna let a little bit rest a little bit and wash off the brush and then dry it off. And now let's go ahead and go in with our mama. There's mama. All right, just pure black again. And remember, if you want to add a little bit of water to this, you certainly can. Just make sure and turn the canvas flat surface. And then when I paint all my black in, hold that brush out to the side as much as possible. And then I like to do little crisscross strokes as my final touch with pattern, so that when it dries, you don't see lots of scattered random brushstroke patterns going in one direction and then shifting. But if they constantly are turning like this, crisscross back and forth, then it will reflect the light very nicely, and then you won't notice those brush strokes as much, or you will, but the pattern will be more pleasing to the eye. It won't look choppy and transparent. And as you get more experience with painting, you start to realize what that looks like. So I'm going to give you an example. Like, I'm going to just push up just like that. So if I were to leave that stroke just like that and think that in a wet state I don't notice it, but as soon as it dries, you're going to see this big choppy brush stroke coming through there in a random way. And so what I do now is I feather it out and I just crisscross back and forth. It's like making little tiny X's like this over and over again, and I do that in the background, and then that will feather out that pattern really nice, and then that will reflect the light nicely at the very end. And then I do make sure that I just barely overlap the edge of the canvas. You don't want to have a little peekaboo of white getting you at the end on the front. And I remember my little crisscross stroke as a final touch of pattern over the top. And then even in here, this is a fairly big area, so I can kind of touch it again. Just kind of try to go in that little, I know it's tight in there, but just barely hit it with a gentle hand and try to get that crisscross motion going. Do my cut-in work here. Make sure I overlap here. And again, initially, of course, it's okay to just paint it on to begin with and get that first coat of coverage. But the main thing that's important is that your finishing touch, again, has that little light texture to it. Just crisscross back and forth over it. All right, so now it's all covered. So now it's that crisscross, crisscross. And that'll give me nice texture in the end. We're going to do our cut in and crisscross that pattern. Make sure you get those edges, at least get that wrap around. Again, just still more of that pure black. It's looking good. Keep going. Now I'm using the line edge of this brush, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so I had to do some firm pressure. Brush is still full, but see the edge? See how it's nice and thin on the edge there? So I had to do some firm pressure to get that nice thin line again. Sometimes the belly of the brush gets really full with paint. It makes the bristles kind of spread out. It's really hard to get a nice thin line near the edge. So sometimes you have to go back in, check the edge, and make sure you're all good there. Do that line edge there. And then now let's feather it out and make sure you get that overlap where that corner is completely covered. And then we're going to crisscross it out as our finishing touch with texture. Yeah, okay. All right, so good job, and we're going to rinse this out now. And now we have some white highlights to do. And I'm going to dry it off. You always want to make sure and take your brushes out of the water and dry them off too. If you leave them in the water, let me give you an example of what happens. I had this little lesson this morning I woke up to. So they dry like that. So this is now going to be a pouncing brush for me. Well, you know, we can use that for that, but other than that, it's hard on your brushes, so yeah, always make sure you dry them off really well and they'll be all good. Okay, so now we need to do some white. So I'm going to come back in with my little buddy, and we've got some pure white paint nearby. Want to make sure we have a nice thin line edge to start with. We're going to start with this little retro look here, so we're going to do our line work that goes down. And then across. And then diagonal. Okay, really fun, very simple. Can y'all see that? Let's make sure we can see that. That's better. Okay, so let's do that again. So we made what looks like a little plus sign, and then a diagonal, and then another diagonal. Wonderful. Okay, so now I need to do the little dots. So we do a fun little trick. We use the end of the brush, so I dip into the paint. There it is on the end of the wooden handle, and then I'll press straight forward. And that's a little bit small, so you know what? Let's use Mama. Mama has a bigger brush handle. We're going to dip into the white paint. That's going to work a little bit better. And then we'll press straight down, do a little twist. And then these make really pretty little polka dots on the ends of this design. And this is a really fun retro design here. And it's super easy with this technique. And then of course, if you like polka dots everywhere, there's lots of places you can use polka dots. You're more than welcome to add more of those into the design if you like that. All right, now we're going to do some little white accents throughout the painting here. So first off, let's get those flash points taken care of. So I want to use the very smallest brush, but the brush handle this time. And we're going to go ahead and dip into a little bit of white. Tiny amount. Okay, on either side, just a little touch there. We can also do it here on these little buttons, little flash points of light. And then let's do some on our little holly berries. Just a little tiny touch. Pretty. All right, let's see here. Now we're going to use the brush side. Little touch of white here on our little bit. And then I just want to echo the same little stroke there on the center. Just little tiny sketches of highlights. And then we'll do a few little highlights here on the bows. Just a little sketch of a line, little touches. And then we talked about doing just a little bit of snowfall on the little twigs here. So basically, it's going to look like a little tiny touch. Just barely drag the end of the brush on top of the twig. We're just going to lightly kind of just touch it and tap it. And then on this one here as well. Like he just has a little bit of fresh fallen snow on him. Yay! We're almost done. Almost done. Let's see, let's do another little white accent here. It's like a little parentheses and another little parentheses. And then I'm going to firm up, cleaned off my brush, I'm going to firm up this red just a little bit here with the candy cane. I'm just taking a look-see to make sure I've got everything done. This is a really tiny detail that you can do, totally optional, but you can also take your little bit brush. I still have a little bit of this brown nearby. It's that orange and that tiny amount of black. And I'm just gonna kind of barely outline it just a little bit with that darkness. It's almost like a dark brown. And then it kind of looks like I do a little bit more. This is dried up on me, so I need to re-wet and get another mix here. But it's that really light brown. And then I'm just going to do like a little soft parentheses. Real subtle. The little lines of the carrot. Totally optional. Put another little touch. And then I want to make sure our little ornament isn't just floating. So I'm going to have a little line. Goes right down to it. It's just hanging there. And then I'm going to do one more, let's see, stroke of white, I think on the belly here. So little buddy, and then some white, little line of white there, little line of white here. Kind of feather that out. A little line of white there. Some fun little accents. And I think we are done. Okay, so it's our beautiful little snowman painting. So cute. The last thing that you can do is you can sign your masterpiece. I'm gonna make sure and let mine set up and dry a little bit. because I think it is much easier to use your permanent marker, and you can do a real tiny little signature here at the base. Or some people just sign the back too, so it's just up to you. Or if you want to, I've just seen this done. I use this a lot. I don't have it in your kits, but what also works good on contrasting colors is like a metallic gold Sharpie too. That's also an option. But I think I'm just going to use the black one that comes with the kit, and I'll just wait till it dries, and I'll just do a teeny tiny little Tipsy Artist right there at the bottom of the snowman. So that's what I'll do there too. So yay! So thank you so much for joining us today. Y'all have done a most excellent job. And this particular class will always be left up as a tribute to Morgan's Purpose, this beautiful fundraiser. They're always trying to raise funds for their beautiful cause. So I'll be sure and leave all the details for how to do that in the description below. So you can always do that. You can always, in the future, I'm sure, buy kits as needed to contribute or just make a donation to go to their beautiful cause. And we just want to thank you again so very much for joining us today. Y'all done a great job, and we thank you so much for your support. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. But again, all the materials you need for this are with the host, and I'll leave that with Morgan's Purpose, and I'll leave that in the description. If you have any problems finding anything, just make sure and send us a message, info@tipsyartist.com, and we can hook you up and connect you with all the right people. But again, thank you so much for your support. Have a beautiful day.